Theater. I brought some of them with me. I'm happy to say South Huntington Library has 3 of them in the stacks. So you can check them out. They're also available on Amazon. I'm here to talk about things. I'm assuming that people are here because they're theater fans. I spoke to one gentleman earlier and I know he's a theater fan. I assume that that's part of it, and you want to know a little bit more. So I have a lot of things that I've learned about Broadway over the years that I'm going to share with you tonight. Things that I know that people tell me, that's really interesting. I never knew that. Understand the difference between Broadway and off-Broadway. Does anybody know what the difference is between Broadway and off-Broadway? Yes, sir.
The size of the theater. I don't remember the numbers.
Size of the theater is part of it. Basically, the Broadway theaters are theaters in New York that seat 499 or more people. The largest Broadway theater now is a little over 2,000 seats, but it's not a big range. Off-Broadway is 100 seats to 499, and below 100 seats is considered the theater. What are the best seats? Now, they charge the most for the seats that are in the orchestra, in between generally the American theater seating style is 2 strips of seats on the side, 2 aisles, and a major center section. That's what they call the American plan. The European plan, they don't have those 2 extra access aisles, so you have to kind of edge your way past a lot of people to get to your seat if you're sitting in the middle. So people think that, bless you, because they charge the most for those tickets, that those are the best seats. But those are not necessarily the best seats. Having gone to see a lot of shows, I can tell you that if you're going to see a musical or a big splashy show, the best seats are in the front of the mezzanine, not the rear mezzanine. Mezzanine just means middle section. In the old days, they had an orchestra, which was the main floor, the mezzanine, which was in between, and then some theaters had a second balcony, and they called it the balcony. The producers and the theater owners have learned that nobody wants to sit in the balcony, so they don't call anything the balcony anymore. It's the rear mezzanine, but it's the balcony. Of every musical, they have what's called, well, it used to be called the Gypsy Robe. Now it's called the Broadway Legacy Robe, because they felt that gypsy was like an ethnic slur. So now they call it this, but it was started in 1948. And what happened was one of the actors from one of Irving Berlin's shows had made a gown and put a symbol of their show on the gown. And when the next show opened, they took it to that show and they said, we're giving you this gown. This is now by the way, gypsies are what the dancers of Broadway used to call themselves, because they'd wander from show to show to show. They were always on the move, and so they called themselves gypsies. Chorus line is the story of gypsies. And they call this the Gypsy Robe, and they've kept the robe going now from 1948 till today. The robe filled up in the early 50s, and so what they did was they moved one of the symbols, one of the logos, to another robe. And all the robes are now on display at Actors Equity, with the Actors Union headquarters on 46th Street, just east of Times Square, and you can go in and see them all. They have mannequins wearing up with all these interesting little traditions that they did on the show, and I figured I'd just show you a little film clip that they made, and some parts of it are funny as well.
A lot goes into making our Tony Award-winning show happen 8 nights a week, so I'm going to give you a backstage.
The Tony Awards nominating committee for 3 years, 2012, 13, 14. I don't know what I did to get asked to be on this committee. I think it's because of this book that I wrote, The Alchemy of Theater. It was a book about how all the different people who work on a show do their jobs. And I think they have problems finding people who can make judgments on lighting and sound and directing and acting and all the other things that they give Tonys for. They want some people who are making the nominations who actually know what goes into those jobs and like for instance, it's very hard judging sound design, because good sound design, you don't notice it. If it's really good sound design, unless they do some crazy sound effect, but really good sound design so that everybody sitting in the back of the rear mezzanine can hear as clearly as a person sitting down in the orchestra. That is really good sound design, and that's not something that you notice unless you're looking for it. So that may be why they put me on that committee.